I'm going to be going over number 7 on the review guide. It is a conics problem. So the first thing the question asks for is the center of the conic. And the center of the conic can be determined by these two values within the parentheses, and everything within the parentheses is opposite, so you know that your center is at -2, 1. The next thing the question asks for is your minor axis, and we know that the a value for this is 3 because a squared is 9, and the b value for this is 2 because the b squared value is 4. So your minor axis is equivalent to 2b, so 2 times 2 is 4. Also, your major axis is equivalent to 2a, so 2 times 3 is 6. And a mistake here would be assuming that a equals 2 because it's under the x, but in an ellipse equation, a is always the greater value. The next thing you want to find is the eccentricity, and the eccentricity requires that you have the c value. So to find the c value, you use the a squared minus b squared equals c squared equation. Don't strain yourself. A squared is 9, and b squared is 4. So 9 minus 4 equals c squared, or 5 equals c squared, or radical 5 equals c. So then you plug that value into your eccentricity formula, which is E equals c over a. So E is equivalent to radical 5 over 3. The next thing the question asks for is your vertices, and your a and b values can be used to determine where your vertices are. Along your major axis, which is the vertical one, because this is a vertical ellipse because the a value is under the y. Your vertices on your major axis are 3 away from 1 on either side. And this can also be determined by graphing it. So then your vertices along your minor axis, which is the horizontal axis, are 2 away from -2 on either side, which can also be determined by graphing it. The next thing the question asks for is your foci. It only asks for one, but I found both of them. This is also determined from your a squared minus b squared equals c squared formula. So your foci are along your major axis, so they're vertical, and the one above the center is at 1 plus radical 5, because you have to go over to the center, -2, up 1, and then go up radical 5. And the focus below the center is equivalent to 1 minus radical 5, because you have to go over 2, up 1, and then down radical 5. Your asymptote is in the form of a slope equation, y equals mx plus b. So your slope is equivalent to a over b, so 3 over 2. And then you can use this, and to find the rest of the equation, you can use the point slope equation. So the values that you want to use for x1 and y1 are your center. So y minus 1 equals 3 halves x plus 2, or y minus 1 equals 3 halves x plus 3. Then you add 1 to both sides, and you get y equals 3 halves x plus 4. And that is your slope equation, or asymptote equation. So the last thing the problem asks for is your x and y intercepts. Your y-intercepts can be found by letting x equal 0 and then solving for y. If you've graphed the equation, you know that there's only one y-intercept and there's 2 x-intercepts. So you plug in 0 for x, and that gets you 0 plus 2 squared over 4 plus y minus 1 squared over 9 equals 1. 0 plus 2 is 2, so you get 2 squared over 4. 2 squared is 4, so you get 4 over 4, which is equivalent to 1. So 1 plus y minus 1 squared over 9 equals 1. You subtract 1 from both sides, and you get y minus 1 squared over 9 equals 0. You multiply both sides by 9. This cancels out, and you get y minus 1 squared equals 0. You then take the square root of both sides to get rid of that squared, and you get y minus 1 equals 0. If you had two y-intercepts, and if this were any number besides 0, you would also take the negative square root, but because the only way to get 0 is 0 squared, that's why you only do this once. So you get y minus 1 equals 0, you add 1 to both sides, and you get y equals 1. So your y-intercept would be 0, 1. And a mistake here would be foiling out y minus 1 squared, because that only gives you more work and confuses you. It's much easier to do it this way. For your x-intercept, you let y equal 0 and then solve for x, so the same thing, just reversed. So you plug in 0 for y. 0 minus 1 is negative 1, and negative 1 squared is 1, so you get 1/9. You subtract 1/9 from both sides, and you get x plus 2 squared over 4 equals 8/9. You multiply both sides by 4 to get rid of that, so you get x plus 2 squared equals 32/9. And this, before you take the square root, this is where you split them out and do the regular square root and then a negative square root. So the regular square root, you get x plus 2 equals 1.89, and then on the negative square root, you get x plus 2 equals negative 1.89. So you subtract 2 from both sides, subtract 2 from both sides, and on this one, the regular square root, you get x equals negative 0.11, and on the negative square root, you get x equals negative 3.89. So your x-intercepts are at negative 0.110 and negative 3.890.